Good morning, second grade, and happy Tuesday. Hope everyone's having a great morning and they're ready to get some schoolwork done today. All right, so yesterday you read the first version of The Tortoise and the Hare. And today we're going to move to that silly version, The Tortoise and the Hare, narrated by the silly but truthful tortoise. So, just like last week, it kind of is the same title, right? It's actually by the same author. So we're going to break this story into parts so it's a little bit easier for us to take a look at it, because remember, this is a very long story. So today you're only going to read the beginning of the story, which is pages 4 through 7. Now, if you're using the video that I made, just go to where it says this is where Monday's reading starts, this is where Tuesday's reading starts, and then stop when I'm like, stop here for Tuesday's reading, okay? So remember, that's all you have to do is read pages 4 through 7. Not a lot of story there, okay? So after you're done with that, I want you to complete the assignment at the beginning, where you just tell me what happened at the beginning of this book and how it's different than the first story that we read, okay? And then I want you to tell me one good thing that's happened in the last 2 days or last week, okay? Since the last time you did the happy thought. So tell me one good thing that's been happening. Maybe that's you got to see your friends yesterday if you got on the Zoom call. Okay, that's a good one, right? Okay. And then I want you to complete 30 minutes on iReady, okay? That's half of your time. Remember, we need 45 minutes total. So go ahead and get 30 minutes today so that on Thursday you only have to get 15 minutes, right? Okay, so that's pretty easy peasy for today. And just make sure you turn your work in to me so I can see it. And that's about it. Make sure you're also getting on Seesaw and completing your math and science work, okay? For Miss Coda. All right. I'm going to read you guys your books. Okay, so the first one is The Magic Treehouse, Thanksgiving on a Thursday. We are on chapter 8. We are almost at the end. Because remember, Magic Treehouse only has 10 chapters, right? So we're almost done with this book. Chapter 8, The Feast. Oh, I remember what happened. You guys remember Jack and Annie ruined the turkey. Remember, they dropped it into the fire and it turned all black. So hopefully they know how to fix it. Or else Priscilla, I think, might be kind of angry with them. Jack buried his face in his hands. I don't believe it, he said. I just burned up the pilgrim's turkey. Stay calm, said Annie. I'll get Priscilla. No, don't tell Priscilla, moaned Jack. We have to tell Priscilla, said Annie. Jack lifted his head and stared at the burned turkey. Oh man, he whispered unhappily. The pilgrims had worked so hard to get their food. They had had such a terrible winter, especially Priscilla. And now he had ruined their first Thanksgiving. The door opened. Annie pulled Priscilla over the hearth. See, said Annie, the turkey fell into the fire and it burnt up. I did it, Jack confessed. Priscilla just stared at the burnt turkey in the wet, messy hearth. Then she looked at Jack. He looked away from her. Oh, Jack, Priscilla said softly. Thou look sad. He nodded. I ruined everything, he mumbled. No, thou did not. She reached out her hand. Come. Priscilla led Jack and Annie out into the bright autumn light. Look, she said. Jack saw the pilgrim women and kids walking to a table. They all carried wooden platters piled with food. In the other houses, they were cooking also, said Priscilla. Jack saw roasted ducks, turkeys, and deer meat. He saw baked fish, lobsters, eels, clams, and oysters. He saw pumpkins, beans, and corns, dried plums, berries, and roasted nuts, steamy pots of soup and puddings, and loaves of baked bread. We have a very good harvest this fall, said Priscilla. We stored many vegetables. We salted our fish and cured our meat. And today, our Wamaping neighbors brought back 5 deer from the forest for a feast. Jack was so relieved to see all the food. Priscilla knelt down and looked at him in the eye. See, thou did not ruin anything, Jack, she said. Thou and Annie have helped me a lot this day. You have both made me laugh, and you have both acted with the kind hearts. Jack was amazed. He thought he'd been no help at all. Come, said Priscilla. Let us join the others. Aren't thou hungry? Jack nodded. Seeing all the platters of food really had made him hungry. He and Annie followed Priscilla in the golden glow of autumn light. Jack and Annie joined the pilgrims in the Wamaping at the long tables. Priscilla gave Jack and Annie wooden plates. She gave them a big white cloth napkins, and she served them plenty of food. And look, there's a picture from the first Thanksgiving. Before they started to eat, Governor Bradford stood up to speak. Those of us who came here in the Mayflower did not know how to live in this land, he said, but Squanto came to help us, and today we give thanks to him, and for the peace we share with his people, and for all of our great blessings. Governor Bradford looked at Jack and Annie. Welcome to our feast, he said. At this moment, 3 worlds, your world, our world, and the world of the Wamapang, are not 3, they are 1. 'Tis the magic of community. Indeed, said Annie, and she clapped her hands and looked at Jack. We did it, she whispered. Did what? Thought Jack. Governor Bradford then put his napkin over his shoulder. Now, he said, let us feast till our bellies are full. As everyone started to eat, Annie leaned close to Jack. We found the special magic, she whispered, the magic of community. Remember the rhyme? She repeated Morgan's words. To find a special magic, when work and toil are done, gather all together, turn 3 worlds into 1. Oh man, said Jack. He'd forgotten about it. We can go home now. No way, said Jack. We have to eat first. Jack and Annie used their fingers to pick up their food, and they ate, and they ate, and they ate. Jack tried everything on his plate, except for a little bit of eel and 2 clams. Everything he did eat, he liked, even the turnips. Food really tastes good, he thought, as he chewed, when you eat it outside on a beautiful day with lots of nice people. And that is the end of chapter 8. So we only have a couple more chapters in that book. All right, now I'm going to read you guys some Charlotte's Web. Now remember, Charlotte has made an egg sac, right? With how many? 400 and I think 15, maybe. Let's see, how many eggs are in there? 514 children. That's so crazy. Can you imagine seeing 514 spiders? I think Miss Mylon would climb up on some furniture and be screaming, right? All right, so let's see what happens at the fair. All right. At 9 o'clock, Mr. Arbel's truck rolled into the fairgrounds and came to a stop at Wilbur's pen. Everyone climbed out. Look, cried Fern. Look at Charlotte's Web. Look what it says. The grown-ups and the children joined hands and stood there, studying the new sign. Humble, said Mr. Zuckerman. Now isn't that just the word for Wilbur? Everyone rejoiced to find the miracle of the web had been repeated. Wilbur gazed up lovingly into their faces. He looked very humble and very grateful. Fern winked at Charlotte. Lurvy soon got busy. He poured a bucket of warm slops into the trough. While Wilbur ate his breakfast, Lurvy scratched him gently with a smooth stick. Wait a minute, cried Avery. Look at this. He pointed to the blue tag on Uncle's pen. This pig has won first prize already. The Zuckermans and the Arbels stared at the tag. Mrs. Zuckerman began to cry. Nobody said a word. They just stared at the tag. Then they stared at Uncle. Then they stared at the tag again. Lurvy took out an enormous handkerchief and blew his nose very loud. So loud, in fact, that the noise was heard by stable boys over the horse barn. Can I have some money? Asked Fern. I want to go out to the Midway. You stay right where you are, said her mother. Tears came to Fern's eyes. What's everyone crying about? Asked Mr. Zuckerman. Let's get busy. Edith, bring the buttermilk. Mrs. Zuckerman wiped her eyes with her handkerchief, and she went to the truck and came back with a gallon of buttermilk. Bath time, said Zuckerman cheerfully. He and Mrs. Zuckerman and Avery climbed into Wilbur's pen. Avery slowly poured buttermilk onto Wilbur's head and back, and as it trickled down his sides and cheeks, Mr. and Mrs. Zuckerman rubbed it into his hair and his skin. Passers-by stopped to watch. Pretty soon, quite the crowd had gathered. Wilbur grew beautifully white and smooth. The morning sun shone through his pink ears. He isn't as big as that pig next door, remarked one of the bystanders, but he's cleaner. That's what I like. So do I, said another man. He's humble, too, said a woman, reading the sign on the web. Everybody who visited the pig pen had a good word to say about Wilbur. Everyone admired the web, and of course, nobody noticed Charlotte. Suddenly, a voice was heard on the loudspeaker. Attention, please, it said. Will Mr. Homer Zuckerman bring his famous pig to the judge's booth in front of the grandstand? A special award will be made there in 20 minutes. Everyone is invited to attend. Crate your pig, please, Mr. Zuckerman, and report to the judge's booth promptly. For a moment after this announcement, the Arbels and the Zuckermans were unable to speak or move. Then Avery picked up a handful of straw, threw it high in the air, and gave a loud yell. The straw fluttered down like confetti into Fern's hair. Mr. Zuckerman hugged Mrs. Zuckerman. Mr. Arbel kissed Mrs. Arbel. Avery kissed Wilbur. Lurvy shook hands with everybody. Fern hugged her mother, and Avery hugged Fern. Mrs. Arbel hugged Mrs. Zuckerman. Up overhead in the shadows of the ceiling, Charlotte crouched unseen. Her front legs encircled her egg sac. Her heart was not beating as strongly as usual. She felt weary and old, and she was sure at last she had saved Wilbur's life. She had felt peaceful and contented. "We have no time to lose," shouted Mr. Zuckerman. "Lurvy, help with the crate." "Can I have some money?" asked Fern. "Will you wait?" said Mrs. Arble. "Can't you see everybody's busy?" "Put that empty buttermilk jar into the truck," commanded Mr. Arble. Avery grabbed the jar and rushed to the truck. "Does my hair look all right?" asked Mrs. Zuckerman. "Looks fine," snapped Mr. Zuckerman as he and Lurvy set the crate down in front of Wilbur. "You didn't even look at my hair," said Mrs. Zuckerman. "You're right, Edith," said Mrs. Arble. "Just keep calm." Templeton, asleep in the straw, heard the commotion and awoke. He didn't know exactly what was going on, but when he saw men shoving Wilbur into the crate, he made up his mind to go along. He watched his chance when no one was looking, and he crept into the crate and buried himself in the straw at the bottom. "All ready, boys," said Mr. Zuckerman. "Let's go." He and Mr. Arble and Lurvy and Avery grabbed the crate and boosted it over the side of the pen and up into the truck. Fern jumped aboard, and she sat atop the crate. She still had straw in her hair and looked very pretty and excited. Mr. Arble started the motor, and everyone climbed in, and off they drove to the judge's booth in front of the grandstand. As they passed the Ferris wheel, Fern gazed up at it and wished she were in the topmost car with Henry Fussy at her side. All right, and that is the end of that chapter. So we will have to read more and see what kind of special award they are going to give Wilbur. Hopefully, enough to save his life, right? Well, Charlotte seems to think so. We actually only have 3 chapters left in Charlotte's Web, too, so we are almost done with that book. All right, I hope everyone has a happy Tuesday and you get your work done. See you tomorrow.